Yeah, I'm starting the live stream, and then once I
Oh,
get
I see. Yep.
confirmed, we'll hit record and I'll be off and running.
Okay, sounds good. All right, great. Okay, for the record, it's January 27th, 2025, 1 o'clock p.m. I'm Phil Albright's hearing examiner for the city of Lacey, holding a hearing now on application for preliminary plat and planned residential development for the Monarch Meadows project, file number 24-0161. The hearing format is we'll start off with a presentation from staff. Mr. Font will give us an overview summary of the project. Once he's done, we'll move on to applicant comments. If they want to add anything, that'll be their chance. Then after that, move on to public comments, if we have any public today. After public comments, we go back to Mr. Fenton. He'll answer any questions that the public raised during their testimony, and also give them a chance to provide rebuttal evidence if he thinks that's necessary. Then applicant gets final word, and I get 10 business days to issue a final decision. So pretty straightforward process. By state law, I'm only allowed to consider evidence that's put into the record and nothing else. I'm not allowed to talk to staff or the applicant about the merits of the proposal or anything substantive about it. Just basically, I can talk to them about scheduling the hearing, and that's it. So everything I know about the project today will be based on information that's available to everyone else that's participating in the hearing as well. And to that end, Mr. Font put together a staff report that he wanted me to consider as part of the record available to everybody. On page 2 of the staff report, he's identified the exhibits, the studies and documentation involved in assessing compliance with permit code criteria. For a planned residential development and preliminary plat, that tends to involve quite a bit of study and work, and that's borne out in the exhibit list Mr. Fant put together. We've got the site plan review application, general land use application, planned residential development application, forest practices application, a lot of applications involved here. We have the civil plans for the preliminary plat, which show how the lots are laid out, that kind of thing, and landscaping, does landscaping, of course, habitat management plan for any critical areas on sites, tree protection plan, SEPA review, that's where the decision is made whether or not to require an environmental impact statement. One is not required for this project. Traffic analysis, drainage control, that's for your stormwater controls. Safe walk analysis to make sure kids have safe walking conditions to and from school and school buses, and agency comments. So at this point, just want to ask if anyone has any objection to entry of these documents into the record, or anyone needs to see any of them. If you do object or want to see one of them, go ahead and click on the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. And I'm not seeing any takers there. And same thing in the council chambers, no takers there, I take it. So I'll go ahead and admit exhibits 1 through 20. And with that, I will then swear Mr. Fant in so he can give us an overview of the project. Mr. Fant, just raise your right hand. You swear firm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
I swear.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Mr. Ulbricht, just a quick starting matter before I dive into things. I wanted to address the potential for another exhibit for Exhibit 21, which would be the plat map, and then an Exhibit 22, which is just a PowerPoint presentation that condenses the staff report. Doesn't add anything new. All the information is taken from the staff report.
Okay. Any objections over Exhibit 21, the plat map, or Exhibit 22, the PowerPoint that Mr. Fant will be presenting, or anyone need to see those documents? Okay, not seeing any takers there. Again, if you want to see it or object, click on the raise hand button. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and admit Exhibits 21 and 22. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Fant.
Perfect. Okay, I will share my screen here. All right. And then is this PowerPoint showing up for everyone?
Yes. I mean, you're not in slide mode, but it's showing.
We'll keep it at this. Last time it caused some problems, so there's
Okay.
no cool animations. I don't think it'll be I don't think anyone's missing out on anything. So we're here today. We're looking at project 240161, which is going to be the Monarch Meadows PRD. The project is going to be 133 single lot family subdivision on 30.46 acres. The property is zoned low density residential, which is generally a 0 to 6 units per acre. The development is doing the planned residential development route for this application due to the fact it proposes modifications to the minimum lot size, which would be different than the underlying low density zone. The project will provide approximately 13.35 acres of open space, or 44% of the site, in 6 separate tracts owned and maintained by the Monarch Meadows Owner Association. There is a wetland on site and a second wetland, which does have buffers that go onto site, as well as the presence of Oregon white oaks. The primary elements to consider, which the staff report lays out, is going to be the planned residential development / subdivision, the open space that is tied to it, a boundary line adjustment, and the preservation of critical habitat in the form of oak habitat and wetlands. Some of the major considerations of the planned residential development, where they're permitted in the low, moderate, and high density residential zones, of which this project is located on the low density. Types of uses permitted, nearly all residential developments, including single family, which this project proposes. The lot sizes that come with a planned residential development, the basic underlying lot sizes of the 3 aforementioned zones are effectively waived when going through planned residential development if the other elements of the planned residential development code are met. Additionally, density increases are allowed in a planned residential development, though this project does not propose that. Setbacks and side yard requirements. The major element of a PRD that needs to be considered when it comes in is that there's a no less than a 20-foot setback for buildings. Within that, the applicant in their plat has shown the 20-foot setback line. This primarily applies to this site on the northern border and the western border. The east and southern borders do not have buildings within that 20 feet. The south end is primarily going to be wetlands and storm retention, and the east side is going to be proposed to be a landscape buffer as well as a public road. This is a aerial view of the zoning overlay that was pulled from the staff report showing the site. This is the primary parcel here, which is zoned as low density, as well as the southern parcel, which the BLA is being requested for as a condition, which will include that wetland, which will then go towards open space, which I will get into in just a moment. To the east and west is also low density single family developments. To the north is the zone is mixed use high density corridor. Currently it is developed as 2 multifamily developments as apartment buildings. This section here is actually just roadway. It's public right of way. I believe that's a zoning overlay that's never been removed. This is open space institutional -S for school. This is River Ridge High School. And then over here is an empty parcel of general commercial that is undeveloped. So the main element of the PRD, or one of the primary components, is going to be the 30% required open space for a PRD as common open space. Up to 50% of that common open space may be satisfied through the preservation of tall stands of trees, wetlands, critical area, habitat, and their buffers. This site is meeting that 50% or using their 50% credit primarily through the wetland tract to the southwest. And that wetland tract will be included through a boundary line adjustment, which again is has been put into the staff report as a condition. The remaining 50% must be usable and accessible. The PRD's intent for open space is primarily for the preservation of open space, critical areas for public enjoyment. And lastly is private open space, which is encouraged to conform to the usable private open space of the underlying zone. In this case, that is, I believe, 300 square feet with a dimension of 15 by 15 per lot. That is something where the applicant has proposed a essentially preliminary concept of what that would look like. That's something that would be reviewed during the building permit phase with each individual site plan for these lots to make sure that's it's there along with the landscaping. This is the preliminary landscaping plan of the site showing the southern wetland, storm pond, integrated trail systems, oak habitat, and the concept for private open space. Getting to the aforementioned boundary line adjustment. So the site is looking to do a boundary line adjustment on the southwest portion of the site. This has been put into the staff report as a condition. That would increase the northern parcel from 22.46 acres to include, let's see here. Looks like that may be an error here. So it's intended to, I believe, include another 8 acres, which would make it 30.46 acres. That is written, I believe it's written correctly in the staff report. So this is just a error on the slideshow here. That is the 8-acre boundary line adjustment is needed to, or it's intended to be incorporated to achieve the 30% open space requirement. And additionally, by taking the wetland as part of this subdivision, the entire wetland and its buffer will be protected in perpetuity. It is should be noted that I believe both parcels north and south are owned by the same owner. The applicant, correct me if I'm wrong there. The last portion is the preservation of critical habitats. First one being oak habitat. The site currently contains 128 oak trees, which have been identified and recorded on the property. Understory vegetation has been severely impacted by unauthorized encampments. This illustration here is pulled directly from the habitat management plan, showing some of the negative impacts to the site and how it has degraded the overall oak habitat. In the habitat management plan, they have identified the term they use. It's the critical area of that habitat, which is going to be, let's see here. Is the portion of the habitat management or of the oak habitat that is essentially going to be the most critical and continuous. Through the habitat management plan's proposal, it proposes that it would increase up that continuous zone from 40 trees to 60 trees, and it would increase the overall area of it to encompass, or would increase by 34,119 square feet. This would also be, the site would be improved through the removal of invasive species, as well as monitoring the site in the future to ensure that the trees on site, the critical trees, are kept in good health. It is noted in that habitat management plan in Exhibit 7 that according to Lacey Municipal Code 1433-116E, The provided measures ensure that the proposed mitigation plan achieves equivalent or greater biological function as compared to existing conditions. Secondly is going to be the wetlands on site. The critical areas report notes many similar negative impacts to the wetlands from activity on site that is not permitted, which has degraded the site and its health. It goes over the wetland buffers of the site and shows that there's no proposed development within the wetland buffers and no impacts. And they're also taking minimization measures, which are shown in Table 6 of Exhibit 8 in the Critical Areas Report. These have also been applied as conditions according to Lacey Municipal Code. Some of those would include constructing a fence along the site so that small wetland critters can pass freely. So it's not a hard cedar fence where they're kind of stuck being there. No light will be shown directly into the site, affecting the local habitat and various other elements of that. There's also conditions about protecting it during construction, such as construction activities and storage need to be on the highest part of the site. The city contract forester will be out there to review tree fencing, protection fencing, and other various fencings on site to ensure that there's critical area habitat is being protected, and things of that nature. Lastly, this is just the Exhibit 21, the plat map, which shows that 20-foot buffer, which is also shown as a condition that needs to be shown on these sites when they come in, and the various tracks. And then lastly, staff conclusion on the matter, which is going to be based on the above analysis, city staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat, planned residential development, and Class 4 forest practices. And I'll stop sharing my screen here.
Okay, just one kind of basic question here. The site description in the staff report notes that one of the two lots comprising the project site includes a developed manufactured home community. And I can't figure out, is that community being excluded by a lot line adjustment, or is it going to be removed for this project? Because I don't see it in any of the aerial photographs, and I can't figure out what's going on with that.
It should be, portion of it is shown in the zoning map in the staff report. So when the boundary line adjustment does come in to include that wetland into the north, that southern site will be reviewed just to ensure that setbacks and density are still met and do meet that.
So is this manufactured home community going to be part of the project site still after the boundary line adjustment, or like I said, I can't.
No. So that will be its own parcel, I believe, its own development in the north.
Okay,
that will be its own development.
Yeah, I just wanted to figure out where that was headed. Okay, good, good to know. All right, thanks, Mr. Pennant. All right, let's move on to applicant. Anyone want to say anything on behalf of the applicant at this point?
Thank you, Examiner Albright. My name is Jeff Pantier.
Okay, Mr. Pantier, let me swear you in real quick. Just raise your right hand. You swear affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
I do.
Okay, and just for the transcripts, your last name is spelled P-A-N-T-I-E-R, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great, go ahead.
So thank you, Reese, for the presentation of the staff report. With me today is the applicant team, and so I'd like to just introduce them. When they get to testify, they can give their particulars. But with us today, and I'd like to just correct the record. I think the application might have listed my firm, Hatton Godat Pantier, as the applicant, but for the record, the applicant is D.R. Horton.
Okay.
And they're with us today. We have Raylyn Hultquist. What do I do with my glasses? Here we go. Hi, Raylyn. And I don't know if Mark. And with me today in our conference room is Chloe McIntyre. She's civil engineer for the project. And down on the end of the table, you might not be able to see him, is Chris Carlson,
Okay.
planner. We also have the biologist with EnviroVector, Curtis Wambach. And we have the transportation engineer, Dan McKinney with Transpo. The part of the development team, we have Geotech, the Riley Group. They're not present today. Chloe would be able to speak anything related to soils and geotech. We also coordinated with Sound Urban Forestry on the urban forestry component. They're not present today as well. And then I can't forget Duana Koloskova. She represents us on the legal side. So with that, I'm going to give a brief recap of the project. I know Reese covered probably 80–70% of it. There's probably a few trinkets I'm going to cover. Then I'm going to mention a couple items in the staff report that might need clarification. Talk about the PRD a little bit, and I'm going to weave in some comments about the boundary line adjustment, since there was some comment about that and the neighboring mobile home park. Then we'll turn it over to Dan and let him give an overview of the traffic report and his findings. The critical areas, we'll turn it over to Curtis and let him give a summary of his work related to the wetlands and the oak habitat. And then Chloe will pick up, again, we'll just summarize this stuff, but she'll pick up the stormwater elements at a high level. And then we'll come back and talk about the back to the staff report and the conditions of approval. So with that, this is a 30.46 acre project into 133 single family lots. We went through a number of design iterations with city staff. With it being a planned residential development, staff encouraged us to incorporate a diversity of home styles. And so where we started out with 100% front-loaded, traditional front-loaded homes, this evolved to a pretty significant revision in that we incorporated a significant amount of rear-loaded or alley-loaded homes. And that's to offer some variety of housing types and styles pursuant to the PRD code. But in the end, it's 133 single family lots that are a mix of front and rear load. The density is pretty much right in the middle of what the city code calls for at 4.37 units per acre. The only reason really for the PRD, as Reese pointed out, is really just relief from the minimum lot sizes that are otherwise governed in the underlying zoning code. The lots will range from 2,700 square feet to about 5,000 square feet. And the other item would be the lot widths. There's, with the PRD, these lot widths will be anywhere from 30 feet to 40 feet. And the underlying zone would require 40 and 50. So there's some relief requested there through the PRD. Otherwise, all of the other underlying zoning requirements are being met, and there's no density bonus requested with this project. 13.35 acres of open space is being dedicated, which represents 44% of the gross site area. Each lot will be served with City of Lacey sanitary sewer and water, with extensions from the existing systems located in the Hoe Street. So to orient you, Hoe Street dead ends. It's an existing public street that dead ends near the northeast corner of the property. And then if you follow that extension south, then it connects with an existing private access road that serves the mobile home park. So the mobile home park lies immediately south of the subject property. And that Hoe Street will serve, that Hoe Street extension as it extends through the mobile home park will serve as an emergency vehicle access as part of this project. All of the lots will be accessed by public public streets. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots that are accessed by private streets. They're located in the northwest and southwest corners of the property. And then there are, as I mentioned before, several lots that are rear loaded. So they have access from the public street, but they also have an alley that serves as access to their garages. Sidewalks will be installed along each side of all of the public streets throughout the subdivision and along one side of the 2 private streets, track G and H, thus providing a safe walk route to the schools and bus waiting areas. Stormwater will be managed through a series of water quality and detention systems in the subdivision. Chloe will speak in more detail to that shortly. As far as the planned residential development goes, the requirement for 30% set aside of open space is met with 44% being planned. The open spaces have been designed to provide interconnectivity and provide accessible, safe, and inviting areas for the residents of the subdivision. The design includes preservation of trees with a focus of preservation of oak trees, protection of the wetlands and buffers, provides for active recreation and with the installation of a community play area. There's extensive landscaping throughout the interconnected open spaces. There's trails and walking paths also providing interconnectivity, and the stormwater management facilities have been incorporated into the open space design. The staff report, so the applicant concurs with the staff report with just a couple of clarifications. Under condition number 14, which is on page 26 of the staff report. Talks about the property owner being responsible for the ownership and maintenance of the irrigation and landscaping systems. We think that was intended to say that the maintenance and of the irrigation and landscaping within all the common areas and the planter strips that are located within the public streets would be owned and maintained by the homeowners association. So typically, all of these common areas, including the landscape strip along the streets, we assign the homeowner association as the responsible party to manage those. And I think the city staff will agree with that, but we just wanted to clarify.
What's the condition number on that again?
Condition number 14 on page 20.
Oh, 14. Okay, got it. Great. Thank you. I'm going to come back on the conditions of approval. There's a couple of items there, but I think we'll let the rest of the team give their presentation, and then before we close, I'll come back to that. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Dan. If you could give a summary of your work related to transportation, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I'm more than happy to. I'll just be real brief, Mr. Examiner. My name's Dan.
Okay, Mr. McKinney, got to swear you in. Just
Yep.
raise your right hand. You swear affirm, tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
I do.
Okay, and your last name for the record, transcripts is McKinney, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a managing principal at the Transpo Group and have testified in front of you a number of times on different traffic studies. So good to see you. We completed a traffic study for the proposal, basically following all of the standard procedures and guidelines that the city of Lacey has, scoped out the analysis, identified a study area of 8 intersections that we coordinated with the city of Lacey as well as Thurston County. We collected data, went through all the standard procedures. There was no LOS deficiencies in terms of project meeting all standards. And the only mitigation was to basically pay traffic impact fees, which there will be fees that will be contributed to both City of Lacey as well as Thurston County based on their interlocal agreements. And I can answer any questions as you may, but I just try to make it real brief for you.
Sure, no, appreciate that. Real straightforward, and yeah, I've looked over your report. It's thorough as usual and very compelling. So appreciate your comments, Mr. McKinney. All right, next.
Stormwater, and Chloe will give a super brief explanation of the stormwater management plan.
Okay, and I'm sorry, Chloe, I didn't get your last name. The audio went mute for a while.
Yeah,
Pardon?
McIntyre.
Oh, McIntyre. Okay, Ms. McIntyre, just raise your right hand. Do you swear, affirm, tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
I do.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
We've had a couple of site visits to the site from the geotechnical engineer to establish stormwater potential on this site. The advancement of 16 test pits and 3 pilot infiltration tests indicate that glacial till is very shallow at this site. And we believe, and the geotech agrees, that infiltration at this site is infeasible. So for treatment and stormwater management at the site, we are proposing to treat stormwater for phosphorus and metals due to its proximity to the wetland and the release to that wetland. Treatment will be provided via adequately sized proprietary treatment structures with city approval. Flow control for this site will be provided by an on-site detention pond with metered release to the off-site wetlands matching the existing conditions. Wetland hydro periods will be maintained consistent with the guidance in minimum requirement 8 of the Lacey Stormwater Design Manual. Conveyance on the site will be via catch basins and pipings to those stormwater facilities. And then later on, I would like to touch on some of the conditions by Doug Christensen in his letter to Reese Fant, but we'll do that at the end. So if you have any questions on storm, I'm available.
Nope, pretty straightforward. Thank you, Ms. McIntyre. All right, Mr. Pantier.
So
What
we'll
else
have,
you got there?
thank you. So Curtis Wambach with Bauvector give a very high level summary of his work related to the wetlands and the oak habitat management plan.
Okay.
He's going to come around to the camera.
Oh, there it is in the room. Okay.
I'm gonna try to keep it brief because I think we just had a review of it by the city just a few moments ago, and that was a pretty detailed
He's
review.
going to swear you in.
So
Okay, yeah. And Mr. Wambach, well, first, just the spelling of your last name for the record.
it's Wambach.
Okay, great. All right, Mr. Wambach, so let me swear you in. Do you swear, affirm, tell the truth, nothing but the truth in this proceeding?
I do.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Curtis Wambach. I'm principal and senior biologist of EnviroVector Environmental Consulting. And I'm going to go over the reports that I prepared. I prepared a critical areas report and an Oregon oak habitat management plan for the site. And with the critical areas report, the first thing we do is we look at agency databases, and then we performed a site evaluation and a delineation on the 8th of February, 2024. Delineate 2 wetlands on site, labeled them wetlands A and wetlands B. And both of the wetlands were rated as category 3 wetlands. The habitat score was 5 for both wetlands. And under the City of Lacey code, both of those wetlands would maintain a 60-foot buffer. And a 60-foot buffer was established if we apply there's a table 14T-68 under the Lacey Municipal Code for mitigation measures. And we're going to apply those mitigation measures to attain the 60-foot buffer. And the takeaway message from the critical areas report is no, there's not going to be any wetland or buffer impacts. All wetland and buffer impacts would be avoided. All right, so then I'm going to go on to the Oregon Oak Habitat Management Plan. So in the oak, I'll skip through this a little bit. So we performed a field investigation. We were on site 8 times between 4th of August, 2023 and the 19th of February, 2024. We tagged all the oak trees on the subject property, and those photos from the oak trees can be found in Appendix A, photos 41 to 144. We mapped all the oak trees on figures 2 to 7 in the report. The data from the oak trees can be found in Appendix E. 128 oak trees in total were tagged on the subject property and mapped on figures 2 to 7. So in that, there's 3 oak stands that qualified as priority habitat under the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife and under the City of Lacey Code. And those 3 areas are mapped in figure 7 of the Oregon White Oak Habitat Management Plan. And I want to talk about the proposed impacts and mitigation for a moment. So the total square footage of the 3 priority habitats is 54,178 square feet. There's a proposed impact of 10,765 square feet. 43,414 square feet would be avoided and enhanced. But we also are proposing new priority habitat at 44,883 square feet. So in essence, the following mitigation, the total square footage of the mitigation is going to be 88,297 square feet for a total increase, a net increase of habitat of 34,119 square feet. So there'll be an increase of habitat. Then also there's going to be proposed some Oregon oak tree impacts. However, the net gain in oak trees would be 20. So we'll have 20 additional trees when we're comparing those that are existing on the site. We're replacing trees at a 3-to-1 ratio. And our mitigation strategy, I want to refer to section 7.2 in the Oregon White Oak Habitat Management Plan for our mitigation strategy. And the mitigation strategy involves a number of components, including weed maintenance, our weed maintenance program, which is found in section 7.5 of the Habitat Management Plan. We're proposing 5 years of monitoring and maintenance. We're cleaning up all the garbage and all of the hypodermic needles and everything else found on the site. We saw a photograph of that earlier of what that looks like. And also we're going to preserve aerial pathways. We're going to translocate any saplings or acorns to the mitigation area, girdle any competing Douglas fir or other trees, and construct cavity nest in girdle Douglas fir trees. And all of this is the mitigation comes from procedures and recommendations from the Department of Fish and Wildlife and their management recommendations for the Oregon White Oak. And our mitigation proposal can be found in figure 8 of the report. So also as part of the report, we performed a functional analysis. We used the oak habitat metric, and this is required under the Department of Fish and Wildlife for projects that involve oak trees. So they have an oak rating form that's very similar to and kind of analogous to the wetland rating forms that I think everyone's a little bit more familiar with. So we rated the oak trees, the priority oak habitat on the site as between 22% and 25%, which is minimal to low. The mitigated condition we also rated, and the mitigated condition is going to actually double the score of functional habitat in the priority habitat areas. So we're going to go from about 25% score to 49% score. So we're increasing the habitat score by about 24 to 26 points. And we're mitigating the mitigation ratio that's required is a 1-to-1 ratio for habitat score, and we're far exceeding that. All right, I think that should conclude my presentation. Any questions?
No, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that the work that's gone into your analysis there. I've worked with at least one community that believes that the white oak, despite being designated priority habitat, are just protected by a tree protection ordinance, and they take them all down. And I've always ruled that's incorrect. And most communities do what you do, and I appreciate the fact you're doing it correctly. So, thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Patchy, anyone else?
So I'm going to come back to Chloe to talk about stormwater conditions and point of clarification on that. Then she'll kick it back to me to close this out.
Okay.
Okay, so in the staff report, Reese has referenced the letters sent by Doug Christensen and Public Works to be included as conditions for this plat. There was a little bit of contradiction between Doug Christensen and Public Works on those conditions, and I have since communicated with Doug via email, and I would like to include that email into the record as Exhibit 22 if I'm able to.
Okay.
But essentially,
Any objections over what's the date of the email?
the date of the email was, I believe it's January 23rd.
Okay, and does anyone out there need to see that email or have any objections over its entry in the record? Again, click on the virtual hand at the bottom of your screen. No takers, so we'll say, I think, yeah, Exhibit 22. It's admitted as Exhibit 22. Okay, go ahead, Ms.
So
McIntyre.
essentially the gist of that email was Doug had mentioned that this project, to satisfy core requirement 5 of the stormwater design manual, would be required to meet the LID performance standard. However, I've argued that this project can satisfy that core requirement with the list approach and be consistent with the stormwater design manual's guidance, as long as that we provide adequate documentation for every list option. And so it's just a little clarification on that condition.
And Doug concurred.
And Doug did concur with that.
What's the condition number again for that one?
It was in Doug's letter on item 3.
Okay.
So Doug's original letter was dated December 6th of 2024.
Okay.
Let's talk about it. So it's this one here, 20B.
20B.
Exhibit 20B is in boy.
Okay.
Hearing Jammer.
And what condition requires conformance to that letter? I guess I'm trying to.
I believe it was.
There's
Yeah, let me see if we have that. I'll let Jeff.
Well, actually, Jeff Pantier here. So the condition, if you read the staff report, and Reese can track along here with me, Reese adopted the recommendations from Exhibit 20B as in boy. So it's conditioned by reference. And so,
okay, that's the only, okay, gotcha.
And that's where it's at. So there isn't anything written out per se. It just references the 20B exhibit. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yeah. Yes. Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay, and then also within that 20B exhibit was item number 6, states that there's a seasonal work limitation and no construction can be completed during the wet season. However, in that same email that I would like to include as Exhibit 22, Doug has acknowledged that the city can approve construction during the wet season if we have an adequate temporary erosion sediment control plan and construction stormwater pollution prevention plan with the city's wet weather SWIP amendment. So I would just like to leave it open that we could, if we can comply with all of the city's requirements, that we could construct during the wet season, which is consistent with the Public Works conditions.
Okay.
Mr. Ulbrich, the condition is condition 28 that's referencing Exhibit 20, which is the staff comments as conditions.
Oh, it is in there. Okay, great.
Yep.
So Jeff Pantier here. So maybe as a suggestion, maybe maybe condition number 28 could append a comment or a note to that, except as provided in email dated such and such between Chloe McIntyre and Doug Christensen. Then I think everybody's on the same page.
Okay, sounds good.
And then I had one more to address from the Public Works conditions, and that was Exhibit 20A. Item 11 stipulates that the means for sewer extension of this project has to be through an 8-inch main extended to the site. The specifics of sewer extension are still being worked out, so I would like to suggest that that specific condition be revised to state that a minimum of an 8-inch sewer main must be extended. That way we could upsize if we have to. I just want to leave it a little bit more open.
Okay.
Maybe Tom Stiles could comment on that. I think he'll agree.
Okay. Well, I think, yeah, well, I'll let staff comment on that when we get back to staff, so. Anything else, Ms. McIntyre?
Not from me. Do you want to address 36?
Yeah, so I just have one or two other items. Jeff Pint here. Back on the banner line adjustment. So when the banner line and there's a condition in the staff report that a banner line adjustment must be completed prior to final plat approval for this. So essentially the property line between the mobile home park and this vacant land will move northerly to, it'll move southerly to incorporate basically all of the wetland system so that the wetland isn't bisected into two separate ownerships. The wetland will be completely contained within an HOA, homeowner association tract. And so, and it also conveniently provides for additional open space for the project, but nonetheless, it'll be a clean demarcation of where that property boundary is. And both parcels are currently owned by the same party, so it's a fairly simple process. Then as far as condition number 36 of the staff report, condition 36, 36? No.
Yeah, I only have 28 conditions in my staff report.
It's 36 of the Public Works.
Oh, Public Works. So it's of 20A.
Number 36.
Number 36.
Okay.
So that condition, so when we build collector roadways in the city of Lacey, there's a requirement to provide for a 20-foot sort of open space strip alongside the collector road. And in this particular design, the Hoe Street extension is already committed along the east property line of the property. So there will be an extension of a collector road through the property, but it's going to be aligned on the east property line. Through the different design iterations for the project, as I mentioned before, we incorporated some rear-loaded product, and lots 68 through 73 are in fact rear-loaded. So it would be awkward to have an open space strip between the public street and the fronts of those homes. And so what the city agreed to was if we could provide a 20-foot wide open space strip along the east property line for as much of a length along that east property line as we possibly could and still build that collector roadway, that would satisfy the requirement. So I just wanted to point that out. Additionally, track D2, which is adjacent to lot 67, that track is 15 feet wide, but that coupled with the 5-foot side yard setback, we won't have any buildings within 20 feet of the collector road. So we conform with the requirements, but through an alternative design, if you will. I think that completes our testimony for now, unless you have any questions.
No, it's pretty straightforward. All right, let's public comments at this point. Like I said, I'm not sure if we have any members of the public who are participating. If you're participating virtually, click on the virtual hand at the bottom of your screen. If you're in the council chambers, I'll just ask staff that's in the council chambers to let me know. It doesn't look like we have anybody there, right? In the council, nope, nobody in the council chambers, nobody participating. Yeah, that's as I said, I'm sure the applicant is okay with the fact that there's nobody concerned about this project. So that's helps things move along a little more quickly. Okay, so Mr. Fant, going back to staff then at this point, we have some requests for modifications to the conditions of approval. A lot of times the way I like to handle that is just to leave the record open a couple days so the staff and applicant can submit a written agreement as to how the conditions should be revised. Does that seem like something that could work for staff? Or
Yeah, I think that would work for staff. So would that be Mr. Pantier and the applicant team provide that, we review it, come to an agreement?
Yeah,
something along those lines?
and then you just email it back to me, and if there's still any disagreement, then both parties would have a chance to explain what the disagreement is and why they think it should be one way or another. So
yeah,
I think
no,
pretty...
it all seemed pretty straightforward, especially with the ownership of the landscaping and irrigation. Looking at the code, it could be the HOA or whoever the property owner is in the future is the owner and maintainer of it.
Yeah, the way I read 14, it said property owner, so I would construe that as whoever owns it at the time that something needs to be done, and of course the HOA will own it after the development is done. So
yeah,
I don't know, but we can certainly add some more clarifying language to make that abundantly clear, I think.
Perfect. And then
yeah,
let's see. I think if there's anything that needed to be addressed. I think the applicant team addressed everything, and there was nothing that that I noted that staff disagrees with there, especially on the eastern tract. That was one where that the buffers were in place and what seemed to be to staff and the applicant the best possible, especially with the existing conditions. So
okay, sounds good. All right, anything else, Mr. Fant?
Nothing on staff's end.
Okay, bounce back to Mr. Pache then. And Mr. Pache, is that okay? You just get together with staff over the next couple days, come up with your agreed upon wording on the revisions you want to the conditions, and then subject to the approval of the final decision. Does that work?
Absolutely. I'll have something over to the city tomorrow.
Okay, how much time do you want for that process? Just a couple days, maybe? It's up to you.
Mr. Pantier up to city staff?
Oh, Mr. Pache, yeah, he's the one prejudiced by any delay, so I want to let him.
Yeah, we'll submit the revised language to the city of Lacey tomorrow, being Tuesday, the 28th of January.
Yeah. Okay, and then Mr. Fant, you think is a day good enough time for you to look it over? Do you need a couple, or how does that work?
Yeah, with the elements proposed, I think we could do it one day would be fine.
Okay, all right. So I'll just say then by the end of the day, 29th, those are due. And if you guys need an extension, of course, just ask for it. That's not a problem. So, all right. So with that, the hearing is closed today, except for some post-hearing back and forth on some requested revisions to the conditions, and hoping to get that by the end of the day on the 29th, into the business day, 5 p.m. So with that, I think unless there's something else, we can go ahead and adjourn. And like I said, good for the applicant, and no concern. That means that at the very least, the project has been pretty well designed, and it looks like it has been. So appreciate all your comments today, and we're adjourned for today. Have a great rest of the day.